Is cloud backup enough? Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for askleo.com. Here's the question. Rather than using an external hard drive, what's your opinion and/or advice about backing up to the cloud, such as with Carbonite? Wouldn't that be the simplest way? Also, since I have backup disks of my operating system and factory settings, is it necessary to also back up my OS? I'd really rather not trust an external unit, which could be damaged, just like my laptop. I'm a big fan of cloud storage. I am. I happen to use them all. Not the backup services, but you can achieve the same kinds of backups, the same kinds of things that they offer using cloud services like Dropbox and OneDrive and Google Drive and many, many, many others. And yet, they are not a replacement for a full backup. They can be part of the solution, but they are not the entire solution. So one of the things that's important to realize about most cloud backup solutions is that they don't back up everything. It's very important to understand what they do and do not back up. Most, I have to say most because it varies, but most focus on your data, which is great. Don't get me wrong. That's good stuff to back up, but it's only your data. Many, for example, will default to backing up only the stuff that's in your documents folder, or maybe your documents and pictures and videos folders, or whatever, leaving the rest of the information on your machine not backed up. That's why I say it's part, because it actually is a very good way to back up your data. It backs things up automatically. I have articles on the topic for using things like Dropbox and OneDrive for what I call nearly continuous online backup. And it's off-site backup, which is one of the important approaches that many experts will agree is something you want to consider when you're backing up. You have backups locally in your home or your business, but it's also good to have important data backed up off-site. And a cloud backup, by definition, is off-site. And the data that you're using is definitely your most important stuff. Again, assuming you are aware of exactly what is and is not getting backed up by whatever backup or cloud data service you happen to be using. Now, there's another problem, and that is what I call the limits. An online backup is going to use your internet connection, possibly heavily. So that will vary depending on two important things. One, obviously, the amount of data that is involved in the backup. So if you've got a lot of data in your documents folder, of course, the first time it's going to back up, it's going to take some time for that to get backed up. It's going to take some time to transmit all of that from your machine to the cloud backup service. The other component of that, of course, is the speed of your internet connection. In other words, if you've got a relatively fast internet connection, it may not be that impactful. But if you've got a relatively slow internet connection, and I'm not going to try and define fast and slow because that changes dramatically over time. But if you've got an internet connection that you're already, for example, experiencing as kind of pokey, then it's possible that uploading all of this data to back it up could end up impacting your online experience while the backup happens. Even though it's only uploading, that upload, which in many cases is at a slower rate than your ability to download, still impacts your ability to request files. Because when you, for example, when you visit a website, you're asking that remote site, you're sending data somewhere that says, please get me this page. Well, that request then is competing for your upload bandwidth with all of the data that's being backed up. If there's a lot of data on a slow connection, then that could end up impacting you for a period of time. How long, I don't know, because it depends on both the size of the data and the speed of the connection. But the bottom line is that there are limits to what's reasonable to expect. Here at home, I've got a reasonably fast internet connection, but even so, when I've got something large uploading, like say I suddenly throw a few gigabytes of photos into my Dropbox, then yeah, everything else gets a little slower for a while. So that's something that's really, really important to realize, is that the characteristics of the data that you're trying to back up and your internet connection itself may make online backup impractical. It may work, but it may also render the concept impractical for your specific situation. And there is one very specific scenario that I want to call out as being impractical for everybody. I don't even do this. And that is image backups. I'm a big fan of image backups. I think that they are a cornerstone to a backup strategy that will protect you from almost any type of data loss. But image backups are big, sometimes very big. Sometimes they're as big as your hard drive, whatever the capacity of your hard drive is, or however how much data there is on your hard drive. They can be really, really big. In that case, it doesn't matter how fast your internet connection is. It's going to take a long time to upload that data. And depending on how it's throttled or if it's throttled, that could again continue to impact your ability to use your internet effectively. But it gets worse. If the data that you're trying to upload using this image backup is large enough and your internet connection is slow enough, then all of a sudden, if you've got a daily backup strategy, as I recommend, if it takes a day and a half to upload 1 day's worth of backup, you can never catch up. Your internet connection will be always used uploading data, and you'll never actually be able to upload everything in a timely fashion. Image backups, backups of your entire hard disk, simply are not something that you can do using cloud storage. And it's interesting because at some point you want to say, well, internet connections are going to get faster. They will. Absolutely, they will. Cloud storage is going to get bigger. Absolutely, it will. There'll be lots of room for it online. But at the same time, your hard disks are getting bigger and bigger. The operating system is getting bigger and bigger. The amount of stuff we have on our machine is also getting bigger and bigger. So what seems like a big image backup today may someday be a small one. But by that time, the image backups taken then will also be proportionately larger as well. It's a game of catch up where it's just never going to catch up. So image backups, no, that's not something that you want to attempt using a cloud backup solution, regardless of which cloud backup solution you attempt to use. Now, why not both? And in fact, that's generally what I recommend. If you take a look at many of my articles on backing up throughout Ask Leo, you'll see that I often recommend a blend where you have a regular, I suggest daily, but it doesn't have to be, image backup of your machine so that you've got something that is everything stored locally on an external hard drive that you can revert to for malware, for hardware failures, for whatever. In addition, you might then use cloud storage of some sort, cloud backup of some sort, be it a Carbonite type application or some other kind of application that is a dedicated backup tool, or even online services like Dropbox or OneDrive or Google Drive. If you use them both, you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get the coverage of an image backup stored locally, but you get the immediacy of cloud backup because it's basically updating things as you change the files, and you get the offsite storage that I mentioned earlier. So don't use cloud backup as your only backup solution, but it can be part of a very robust backup solution that happens to include local image backups. I hope that helps clarify exactly why I feel this way about cloud backups. They're great, but they have limitations. But those limitations are easily overcome with things you can do yourself. For updates, for related links, for comments and more, visit askleo.com/6386. I'm Leo Notenboom. This is askleo.com. Thanks for watching.